Hey guys, so I'm going to be doing a video about drawing box plots using the calculator. As you can see, I'm using a TI-84 Plus, and I will be working on number 16 out of chapter 3 on page 182 of the Informed Decisions Using Data Statistics book, the one with the blue cover. Number 16 asks us to determine whether or not one brand of cookies has more chocolate chips per cookie than another brand of cookies. I know it's a little silly, but that's the question. So the first thing we need to do is we need to input the data into our lists. So to do this, we're going to hit Stat, we're going to hit Edit, and we're going to go to our first list, and we're going to begin to input the data. To input data, you literally click the numbers you want and you hit enter, and they will arrive in this list. As you can see, I've already inputted the data, so this is the first step. It's already completed, so we can move ahead. So since there's two types of cookies that we're comparing, we have to enter the data for both cookies, so that's why there are two lists. Now, something that will kind of help you get off to the right start when you're making your box plot is to find out the 5 key numbers that explain the box plot. In order to do that, we're going to hit Stat, we're going to move over to Calculate, and we're going to go with number 1 var stats. And we're going to have it take a look at the changes or the distribution of the data in list 1. So we're going to leave it as list 1, we're going to leave the frequency alone, and we're just going to hit calculate. Now, as we can see, it gives us our mean, it gives us our standard deviation, it tells us the total number of items that are in this list, but then it also tells us how the box plot is situated. So it explains to us what's the lowest number in the group, what is considered the 25% or the first quartile, what is the median, so the 50% mark, and then what is the 75% mark, which is the third quartile, and then lastly the maximum amount of numbers, or the highest number in the data set. So usually we would take this and we would write this down just so when we're looking at our box plot, we can identify what the markers are on the actual graph. So we did this for the first one, now we're going to do it for the second one. Sorry, do 1 var stats again, and instead of list 1, we're going to hit second, and then we're going to hit the number 2, which will change it from list 1 to list 2, and then we are going to hit calculate again. And as we can see, it gives us the same information except different numbers because the data set's different. So we have our mean, we have our standard deviation, we have the amount of numbers in the set, we have our lowest number, we have our highest number, and we have our 25, our 50, and our 75% ranges. Now, to see the actual graph, we're going to get out of this screen. So to get out of this screen, we're going to hit second mode, and that clears the screen. Then we're going to hit second Y, and we can see that we have different plots that could show us our different graphs. Now, to show the one at a time, we want to make sure that we only have one plot on at a certain time. So we're going to go back up to plot 1. We are going to make sure that it's on. We're going to scroll down, and we are going to hit this box plot image. This is the one that we want to use when we're making a box plot. Then we are going to go down to the X list, and we're going to make sure that list 1 is in there. Now, to make sure that we can graph it, we hit zoom, then we hit number 9, and there we go. We have the first graph, the first box plot. Now, we can see that this is how the information is distributed, And each of these points reflects one of those 5 numbers that we saw on the previous screen. So this first number is the minimum, the smallest number in the data set. This is the first quartile, this is the median, this is the third quartile, and this is the maximum number. So this graph in particular shows us the information for the first list, or in this question, how many chocolate chip chips are in Keebler cookies. And then we can do the same thing, so we're going to hit second Y. We're going to go keep our plot 1. And instead of it saying list 1, we're going to hit second 2 again to make it list 2. Then we're going to go back up and we're going to hit zoom 9, and we can see our second graph for our second set of data. So once again, we have our minimum, our maximum, our first quartile, our median, and our third quartile. Now, to take a look at this data side by side, to actually look at the differences, we can hit second Y, and instead of having only one plot on, we can have 2 plots on. And we want to make sure that the 2 sets are different. So we come down and we say this one is list 2. Let's make sure plot 1 is list 1. So now we're going to change it back to plot 1. And we're going to hit zoom 9. And now we can see the 2 graphs side by side, so we can compare them and understand what the data is saying. If you hit the trace button, a cursor will show up to tell you which is which. So the top one is the data represented from list 1, and the bottom one is the data represented by list 2. The line is currently on the median. If you move the cursor, it'll jump to the next median. If you move the cursor, it'll jump to the quartile, and you can check out and see how your numbers actually compare. I hope this helps you understand the spread of the data, and I hope it makes it easier to understand how to make box plots using your graphing calculator.